Welcome back to Derailed. I am your host, JJ Lahey, here with Jake Schyvinck, the one and only. We got a couple faces in the chat here. We had Matthew Hansen. I appreciate some of the comments and questions from Matthew last week. The name I'm looking for in the chat is Tyler Dershel, because we are kicking this show off. There he is. There's our man with he put an emoji in the chat that is not rendering on our screen. Just check.
It isn't for you?
Do you see it on our screen?
I do.
Oh, there. I just pulled up on YouTube. It's
salute.
It's to salute. We got Chris the Casual N. Gas. Cheese.
All gas, no brakes.
Cheese.
Little cheese. Yeah.
Like it. All right. Go Pack Go. Matthew Hansen, Go Pack Go. Too old for this. Reppin' Ed Policy, the one and only. Yeah, check this out. Check out this little cute little feature down in the corner. You can see all the chats. So that's brand new beta untested feature we haven't tried before. So we'll see. Maybe it's great. Maybe it stinks. We'll see. So
we'll be monitoring the situation.
We have to kick this stream off with a very important question from Tyler Dershel. And the reason it's so important is not just because, it's the Tyler Dershel, but also because he sent a super chat last week and sponsored this question right at the tail end of the live stream last week. We didn't have time. It was over a 3 hour, almost a 3.5 hour live stream.
Yeah.
And he comes flying in with a donation at the end of the stream, and we're like, "Listen, man, I think that this requires a lot more than the 3 or 4 minute answer we could possibly give at the end of this live stream. So we are gonna kick off tonight's stream the right way." So his question was, which player should the offense be built around? And Jake and I had all week to think about this, which I'm assuming means, Jake, that you spent all week thinking about it.
Well, I think I had a couple answers when you brought that up last week. And so I was kind of like ready to deliver them both. And
yeah, I had two answers. I
kind of thought, just the more I thought about it over the week, I do feel like those materialized into like what I do think we will be talking about quite a bit with this question.
I mean, obviously, both of us, our answer is fullback Matt Orzech, right?
He was an honorable mention on the list. Fullback Kenny Clark, another honorable mention on the list. But
how are we going to play Kenny Clark at fullback when we are already giving away a day 2 pick to day 2 pick plus Kenny to get back a conditional 7th?
Oh. Well,
wait, hold on. Look at this question from Matthew Hansen. How much should the Packers spend on Rasheed Walker? That is a question we have never tackled on here. We've debated, should they pay Rasheed Walker? But we have not talked dollar amount. That's an interesting one. Be interested to get your thoughts on that. But after we answer Tyler Dershel's question.
I'll star that sucker. There we go.
I like it. Good question, Matthew. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
So, I think we should each pick one player, our number one player, who we are contemplating making this be the answer.
Okay. Who would like to go first? I guess.
I'm nervous because
great pod. Go ahead. You got it.
I'm the host, and so I have to let you go first.
You don't. You may go.
I think I want you to go first because then I will sound really creative going with the second option.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go. The offense should run through. Let me tell you, it's the guy. It's the third round curse breaker himself. Send this offense through Tucker Kraft. Completely send it. And I think there's only one area of concern that would make this a little trickier, is because he has to be the inline guy for this team on a lot of occasions, just because he is really right now their best combo tight end. Musgrave's never going to pass him in the best combo tight end department, right? Because Musgrave isn't really suited to block in a lot of this new scheme, and them kind of being more versatile in how they deploy their run game. If they stuck with a lot of outside zone, wide zone stuff, then, I think Musgrave would have been able to be more effective as he grew as a player. But it just, to me, like Kraft, the way that he attacks after the catch, the way that he's going to be able to dominate the middle of the field, because again, big body tight end who can make plays through contact, but it is surprisingly quick and agile and can make all the plays in space and can be sent. Did you turn something on just now?
I was trying to see if you're able to. I was trying to see if you're able to talk.
Oh, I think
chill lo-fi running.
You can if you want to put the lo-fi on. But like
it's
again,
on.
he could run. He can get through the seam. He's going to be able to crush it on these deep crossers that Green Bay likes to implement in a lot of their stuff in the passing game. And so, like, yeah, with that running back background that we've talked about with him, for a long time, of like, he admires contact. He wants to be a part of that. Like, letting a combo tight end be the focal point of your offense, it's not the worst thing. It's been done before, right? I mean, Trey McBride has been that for a season and a half now with Arizona, right? Gronk was a huge part of that in New England. Jimmy Graham really wasn't a combo tight end, but he had his moments of being the guy in New Orleans. So, like, passing games, especially with the running game coming back and 12 personnel coming back, like, if you can trust guys like Ben Sims to kind of hold the fort a little bit as blocking tight ends and let Kraft roam a little bit more and run the routes we know he can run and make plays after the catch that we know he can make, like, you can, in an offense that is, they're looking for that number one. If guys have a slow start at receiver again, which I think is something that could very well happen, right? I know we're hoping that it doesn't, but if it does, Kraft might have to be the guy, and yes, it will be more difficult if nobody, emerges as a perimeter threat at receiver with Watson out. But I do think just seeing how effective he was when Green Bay gave him opportunities, I think should show you that, this kind of year 3 launching point is something we should be talking about with him, because I think he's ready for it. It's incredible that, through 7 or 8 weeks, we were calling it over. There was a little bit of that for sure, but it was like, man, he's still a young player. He wasn't like a 24-year-old tight end, coming out of college. And, it takes time at these positions. It took a lot of time for Kelsey to get to where he was. And so to see the growth from him, just obviously, I would say in a year and a half, essentially, is, I think, just priming him for, if given those opportunities, he will take advantage of them. You just got to give it to him. And I hope Green Bay does.
Yeah, that was definitely going to be the direction I was going to go, but it's not the direction I thought you were going to go. So I'm going to make the Josh Jacobs case.
Okay.
Because he's the other kind of immediate name that comes to mind when you're thinking about established guys on the roster who kind of don't have off days, Doubs is clearly the other really established guy from a skill position perspective on offense, but he's hot and cold. He's not an alpha wide receiver 1. He's a very consistent, very reliable wide receiver 2 who has these flashes a couple times a month where he just goes bananas. And I'd like to see Doubs and the other receivers get those kinds of opportunities all the time by really making Josh Jacobs the kind of plan A for the offense. He's in contrast with Aaron Jones. Josh Jacobs is built to carry the ball way more than 10 times a game. He can be your bell cow, and I think that he has demonstrated over the course of his career that he gets better as he warms up and gets ahead of steam going. The more you feed him, the more productive he tends to get. And if our offensive line can continue to improve in run blocking and we can wear down these defensive lines, it's going to open up opportunities late in the game. I mean, all throughout, obviously, play action is a heavy part of what Matt LaFleur really wants his offense to feed on. But late in the game, you get a really tired defensive line, especially those big boys in the middle. If you're depending on which direction you're running the ball. And the other thing, Josh Jacobs is getting up there in age. He's decent chance he finishes out the last 3 years on his contract with Green Bay. I as of right now, I don't see them moving on from him before his contract is over. But they clearly are trying to make sure that they are set at the position in the future. And we saw them as they got closer and closer to the end of Aaron Jones's career, really feeding him a lot more than they had when he was younger, not worrying so much about preserving the tread on his tires. Josh Jacobs has had a great career. It is now time to get everything you can from him. You're not worried about, hey, we got to get 5-6 more years out of him at this point. It's just not where you're at. The other thing, the Packers, the Bears, the Vikings, the Lions, the Bills, these cold weather teams do prioritize being able to run the ball really well. Now, the analytics, I don't think bears out league-wide that it's a worthwhile investment to throw this much capital into off-ball linebackers and running backs and all that. But the Packers and those other northern teams that we mentioned, and even the Browns, clearly feel that their data that they're looking at is telling them, hey, this ability to run the ball late in the year when it's cold outside is going to return massive dividends for us. And, I mean, there's a lot to be said for that. Off the top of your head, you can think of a number of games over recent years where some Southern team, maybe it's the Titans, rolls into town and just gets absolutely shellacked by the Packers' run game. You even see the freaking Bears do that
A.J. Dillon,
too. Yeah, A.J. Dillon, that Titans game, I mean, his one and only memorable game. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
I never really saw it again. But I do think, enhancing the play action, enhancing the passing game by making opposing defenses respect the run game. You look at all the too high shell that you're seeing all over the NFL and how much more productive from an EPA standpoint, DVOA standpoint, rushing the ball has become in the last couple of years. And the yards per carry, I didn't look in 2024, but I know in 2023, the league average yards per attempt was the highest it had ever been in the history of the National Football League. We're talking going back to the early 1900s, late 1800s, when they couldn't, they didn't pass the ball at all. And the only thing they did was run.
Never.
You're looking and you're saying in 2023, or maybe it's 2022, one of those 2 years, it was 23, you had the highest yards per attempt across the entire league of the entire history of the NFL. At the same time that you see Aaron Rodgers and Tua and these other guys talking about it's getting harder to throw because all these freaking defenses are always dropping another safety back there. They're just not letting us throw deep. And the smart offenses, Ben Johnson in Detroit, Mike McDaniel in Miami, they're like, oh, you're just going to leave the hole, middle of the field and the line of scrimmage, like wide open. Like you're just telling me, sorry, you're not going to throw deep at all. And I don't care if you pick up 10, 11 yards on the ground. I guess I'll take what I can get. Thank you. So I do think that it is more productive right now than it has been, over the last 10 years to emphasize effective running the ball. The other thing, you look at, especially late in the year, like in the playoffs, look at the playoff games and the play-in games, these really high-stakes games. A lot of the time, the team that is able to establish the run feels a lot more comfortable the whole rest of the game, and they are usually able to play from a advantage situation. They're not playing catch up. It matters more at the end of the year than it does, in week 11. So that I think that is maybe the entirety of the case for building your offense around a running back in 2025. But it's not a bad case, and especially when you look at how unproven our wide receiver room is, and like we could go through and list the qualities of all of our wide receivers and why it would make sense that all of them could have breakout seasons this year. It's just as easy to imagine that you have a year again like last year where maybe only one guy shows up. Doubs was, and when Christian Watson was healthy, him too. But Doubs was kind of the only guy last year who he felt was reliable. And hey, we're tossing some rookies into the mix this year.
Yeah,
it's a group that you would like to take pressure off of. You'd like to give them opportunities to catch defenses sleeping. And hey, Wicks is out there tearing up with the route running. Jayden Reed has proven time and time again how lethal he can be. You got Doubs. You got maybe one of the rookies. Probably Matthew Golden would be the one making some big contributions. It's not hard to see Matt LaFleur putting together an absolutely lethal offense, and everything I just laid out doesn't even mention the tight end that you just talked, for 10 minutes about yourself.
Yeah, I mean the shift that we've had because of defensive coordinators like Vic Fangio, because of Lou Anarumo, who said in that game, the first time the Bengals and Chiefs met in the AFC Championship, said, "No, I'll drop 8 all second half. I'll drop 8 and frustrate the living heck out of you because I know you're not going to run. I know you want to throw." And to have to see that from a lot of guys, from the best quarterbacks facing that and like going and offense is having to say, okay, like, we need to get under center. We need to get back under center. The idea of being able to threaten with the passing game and the running game when you're under center is so massive that it's like, yeah, let's get back to, some vertical run game. Let's test these linebackers who can, who suddenly, after all this, this passing boom have decided, yeah, we've got 220 pounders on the field playing linebacker. It's like, well, I think we should get our guards up to the second level and take care of those guys because it won't be a problem. And because of that, now you're seeing it. You're seeing the Lions saying, yeah, Montgomery and Gibbs, and we're comfortable taking Gibbs at 12 overall because we know what we're going to be able to do to run it, right? And the Eagles saying, no, the final piece is a running back who can take advantage of how good our offensive line is right now to take the pressure off of Jalen Hurts, to make him, have to do less. And I think that's just where we're at. The Bills are, JJ mentioned a great example. Like they fed James Cook the rock so much last year and it paid off time and time again because their offensive line got to where it needed to in the developmental process. Spencer Brown was a big part of that. And it's just like, no, Josh Allen's going to be, when we get a bucket, when we need a bucket, we'll get one, but we will wear you out first. We're not afraid to do so. And the Ravens going to get Derrick Henry in the offseason. So they're like, yeah, no, we can punish you with Lamar, but what if we punish you with both guys? And then what are you going to do? You're going to lead, you're not going to defend the run? I doubt it. And if you do, well, guess what? We've got a couple receivers, tight ends who can make some plays for us. So just the amount of ability that the run gives you in terms of stressing defenses is massive. And Josh Jacobs last year was a big part of that for Green Bay. And yes, I know that the second half of 2023 was, Love taking over and having these big games and the young receivers stepping up. I don't think that's going anywhere, especially if the guys clean up the drops, right, and become more reliable options. But the ability to be under center, yes, is going to give credence to the idea of Josh Jacobs and Tucker Kraft being major focal points in this offense because of the stress that defense are going to have to come downhill to fill. Like, the linebackers are going to have to make sure they're in the right gap. And if you catch them, the linebackers, they got to be stressed getting back into coverage, right? They got to turn and sprint to the spots that they need to be. So yeah, the cycle is reaching the kind of, we're getting towards the peak of the running game and under center play action again, dominating because of how much stress it puts on you and how much stress it's going to put on your 235, 240 pound edge rushers who just aren't going to be able to hang if you're running the football. Like, it's not going to happen. So this shift is a big deal. And Green Bay is I think really fortunate and was really proactive in making sure that they weren't late to the party in this regard. They're not scrambling to make this happen now like some others are at this moment. So I do like the position they're in, and Josh Jacobs can certainly be the focal point. I don't think it really isn't an outlandish thing at all to say. I think that's why I think, JJ, that was the other one I really had. Like, you could have put a receiver in there, and it's like, okay, yeah, kind of, but the Packers don't really seem to want to funnel targets to one guy. They're just not going to do that. They have enough guys to go make plays. So if you're really going to funnel stuff to a singular player, it's going to be one of these two, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, the counterpoint would be that when Devontae was here, they were more than happy to force feed him. And so, it's not hard to draw a line and say, hey, have any of our wide receivers in the last few years established themselves at all? No, they haven't. Right. There's nobody you can justify feeding the rock to like that. And I think that if one of them did really break out, that they would be happy to do that. I think. I'm curious if you had to pick a receiver to be that, and I have my name already. We can say it at the same time. I'll give you a second to think about it.
To like funnel targets, man.
Yeah,
they've all dropped the ball so much. Who do I want to funnel targets to? I can't believe I'm going to say a rookie, but like, I don't know, man.
Okay, all right. All right. I'm definitely going Tay Wicks.
Okay.
And
I would love that to be the answer by midseason. I would love by the end of September, JJ, we're doing this, and just Wicks has it, and it's like, oh, yep, he's got it. There's no question. It's his time. I certainly hope so.
Can I give you an argument for why they should try and do it?
Oh, I would love to. Yes, let's do it. I want this very badly.
Yeah. So I think with Reed and Wicks, and maybe more so with Reed last year, when I was watching the drops, Wicks had concentration drops just freaking all the time, and Reed's drops seem to just be like confidence drops. Like he would go out there and he'd make an okay play. He'd make an athletic decision when he probably could have made a smart decision instead. And then you'd see him like second guess himself and not haul the ball in. So for both of those guys, although I certainly spent a lot of the time last year pissed off at Reed and just like, I don't want to give you playing time right now because you are squandering every opportunity that we give you. So I was frustrated at him for that reason. But then I got to thinking about how big of a deal confidence is for these wide receivers. And
yeah,
if you are telling Wicks or Reed, and I think that they are both talented enough to be the focal point of your offense, probably those two guys more than Doubs. the dividends that could pay off by telling Wicks, like, dude, who cares that you dropped it? We're feeding you you are the feature guy today. It could really pay off, and maybe this is the difference between a guy who never really develops into a reliable player and the next Davante Adams. And we've made the Davante Adams comp for Tay Wicks, 1,000 times on this show already.
Yeah.
But you watch Davante play in his sophomore year with the Packers, and it was rough. No question about it. But again, a lot of the time you'd watch and you're like, okay, watching back with the benefit of hindsight, you're like, okay, I can see the seeds of future Davante. But there are a couple things that are really different. One, he physically, he was a very different player at that point. Still a talented route runner, and I think we've given Wicks more than his fair share of praise for being a good route runner on this show. But his body was a totally different shape than you could cover up his head and blot out the number so I can't see, and just showing me Davante's frame today, I'd immediately know in any jersey, oh, that's Davante Adams. I just know what his body looks like. But especially, I thought the way he carried himself the first couple of years, you could see that the confidence just was not there yet. There was a lot of second guessing himself, questioning himself, and I see that all the time in Reed and a little bit less so in Wicks. And I'd like to see what you could do for those two guys' confidence by just insisting to them, we do still believe in you, and we're going to stick with you until you get it right. Just get out of your own head, because you belong here on this field. You deserve to be the focal point of our offense based on talent. So go out there and back it up.
Yeah, I mean, he is their best separator, period. It's not a question anymore. And I think he has the tools to be the number one, the X receiver in this offense that can also move around. And Green Bay moved Davante in the slot plenty of times.
Matt is going
to give him plenty of matchups, so they can certainly do that as well. But it's nice to obviously have Reed for that, and maybe others that you would feel comfortable. I think Doubs would have no trouble either. But yeah, if it wasn't going to be Golden, for me it would be Wicks, because I think, as you've eloquently put it, like it seems like for Wicks, it's very much either, as you said, just a focused concentration thing or just a technique thing. And I feel like the longer you play in the league, the technique, it's either just never going to be there, or you see it taking steps in the right direction. And I think, I mean, the easiest place to look is the rookie season, where it was just it looked natural, it looked comfortable, and
if he bites, he'll bite as a pup. And you saw the seeds all over his rookie season.
Yes,
and I say that as someone who I missed on him in the draft analysis. I was not big on Wicks at all as a prospect, and we brought him in for a visit, and I was like, oh gosh, we're gonna draft this guy. And shame on me for not digging in, any deeper than I did, and missing how good we drafted him in 23, so missing how good his 2021 season was.
That's the thing. Yeah, 2022 is not a good season. 2021 was really good. And it went the same way with Reed. It was kind of like, wow, this is a little underwhelming, but then you go back a year further and you go, oh no, like, I understand what they're seeing here. Like, this, it's very clear that, like, they are, kind of saying, like, we think the version of you that is, what we want you to be is this version further back than what it is. I know I had Wicks higher than Reed, which, I think both were too low anyway. It doesn't really matter.
I had Wicks higher than Reed the year that they were drafted, but the previous year when I don't think Reed was eligible to go to the draft yet, but he, I watching him play.
Well, he might have been because he was a Senior Bowl guy the year he was drafted.
Okay,
so he might have been eligible.
All right, then that tracks with the memory that I have of being disappointed that he went back to school. Being disappointed for two reasons. One, the year prior to his final year in college, I did like him as a fit for the Packers. And then secondly, just as a fan of a rival school to Michigan State, I didn't really want to, see him come back and tear it up, for his senior season. And he didn't. He didn't have a great final year in school. No. Spoiler alert, basically none of the guys that the Packers have drafted at the wide receiver position had a really good final year in college. Matthew Golden notwithstanding. But
his
the
was
rest
like
of them,
the best by his standards, but it wasn't like a great season per se. Like it was a great second half.
Thankfully, it ended on a strong note. At least it was a little bit of a different picture than what we're.
They were like, oh, this looks like Jordan Love's 2023. We're fine. This is good. We're taking it. It's 100%.
Yeah. Dershel had a follow-up question about Tucker Kraft. He wants to know if Tucker Kraft pans out, is his comp more Kittle or more Kelsey? And as I was contemplating answering that question, I found myself trying to answer about a comp for Kraft, Musgrave, and Ben Sims. I think I have a guy for all three of them.
Yeah.
Musgrave, I think I have like a combination of two guys.
Okay.
My Ben Sims comp, I think, would have to be Tyler Conklin.
Yeah. Okay.
Which
that's pretty good.
John Dunn, is that our tight ends coach name? John Dunn coached coached the Jets tight ends for a bunch of years, and I cannot remember if Conklin's time in New York coincided with Dunn's time or if they missed each other by 1 year. I think they were together for at least a full year though.
I think so.
But if they were, then it makes a lot of sense why, and LaFleur loved Ben Sims. Sims ends up going to the Vikings, and then he gets cut pretty early. And within an hour of the Vikings deciding they were going to cut him, LaFleur is on the phone with Ben Sims, and he's like, "Get in your car, drive to Green Bay. I want you at practice tomorrow morning." They love Ben Sims and have for forever. I got the sense over time hearing LaFleur talk about it that he was a little miffed that Goody didn't draft Ben Sims. Maybe not miffed in hindsight, but miffed in the moment. So I think that would be my my Ben Sims.
It's nice to know that everybody gets that. All right, even LaFleur's like, "Why'd you draft him?" It's kind of nice. It's like, oh, he sees it too. That's nice. That's good. He feels what we feel sometimes.
You know what? Props to LaFleur for keeping that to himself and not airing that with the media, because I'm sure he feels it more deeply than any of the rest of us do. Because, you and I like to sit here and grind tape and then get in front of a microphone and rant and rave about, our, analysis of these players, whatever. And then LaFleur is like, listen, the guys that you bring in this building, like, I'm their boss. I have to freaking get results out of them. Can you please get the guys who I think I want? I mean, he has to feel that way more strongly than we do.
Probably,
but Sims and Conklin, versatile role players, great blockers, great special teams players, and both Conklin and Sims started out as pretty inconspicuous backups who relatively quickly started to get a lot more playing time than anybody expected. And I think the Sims has earned it. He's played some darn good football. And I think, we talked just 1 or 2 weeks ago about how many tight ends we thought the Packers were going to keep on their initial 53. And we really were sitting there going like, kind of feel like they're going to be satisfied with 3 because they like their 3 so much, even though they usually keep 4. And I think that's what they did last year too. Was they only just kept the 3? So
yes, I believe so.
Although, if Tyler Davis had been fully healthy, I think that he probably would have earned a job. But so we'll see if they add a 4th this year. But do you have a different comp for Sims? And if not, you want to hit one of the other 2 guys?
Yeah, I don't think I really have one for Sims. I like the Conklin one though. Trying to think if there's another one that I like. Not really off the top of my head. Which way did you want me to go? Either way, Craft or Musgrave.
Either way, if you
Okay.
do Craft, I think you got to start with answering Tyler's question specifically, and then if you have a different comp, throwing that one out too.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I think the ceiling for Kraft would be in the Kittle range, not the Kelsey, because again, Kelsey's one of the greatest tight ends of all time for sure, but he was predominantly receiving only. He made, I think his run has made teams look at like receiving tight ends who can't block and go like, all right, let's make him the next Kelsey. And it turns out, unless you're exceptional at finding space, wiggling away from tackles, right, having exceptional feel, or your movement skills are just unheralded, you're a unicorn, that would be Brock Bowers, it's not going to work for you, right? The Kyle Pitts thing has not worked, even though he had a 1,000-yard season as a rookie, and I know injuries have played a part, but it's kind of like, where does he play now? Because Drake London's playing X and slot, and they're giving him those buckets like Dallas does with Lamb, and it's like, Kyle Pitts, we really don't have a spot for you right now. And then the same thing goes for like a guy like Kincaid in Buffalo, where it's like he's a good receiver, but he's not playing the tight end part of tight end. He's playing the receiving part of tight end, and it's not working because they have to bring Knox out when they run the football because Knox can block, and that's I think that's why the Laportas and the Crafts, they're working because as we move towards this, we're running the football, we're doing all that, like we're playing under center, the blocking tight ends have to be even more crucial to your success. And so like Kraft has that. He is a combo tight end, and the absolute ceiling, sure, is on the Kittle track of like being able to do both things. And so, is he going to reach that? Maybe not. But I do think like you're still going to get him on that track versus, a Kelsey one where he's flexed out and he's away from the formation, right? Doing all that stuff. It's like, no, we have slot receivers. We can take that. We want you to even be more important of the fact that, you're going to be involved in both phases of this sucker that we're doing here. Like you're not coming in and out based on any personnel unless we're in like 10, right? Like unless we're at 10 personnel, I guess you're not going to be out there, but I don't think we're ever going to be in that. So you're going to be out there. So yeah, I do think like if he pans out, he's pushing himself more towards Kittle territory, more towards the Gronk territory of being the combo tight end go-to player over the middle of the field, who also just kicks butt and can take on defensive ends and pancake linebackers and be a force multiplier in that regard. So this
is why
he goes further down that path than the Kelsey one. It's just the Kelsey one is maybe a path nobody's going to go down. Like there might not be another that goes down that for a while, unless we get back to, once we get out of this cycle that the passing becomes maybe, more back in vogue, a little bit more of like shotgun spread you out. Maybe that guy comes around, but again, you're seeing it like the Panthers paid Tremble, and he hasn't been like excellent or anything, right? But he blocks. And Jatavian Sanders, why can't we get him on the field as much? Well, because he can't block. So, like, are you playing him at slot receiver? Are you going to play like a guy like Coker or Thielen there? I mean, I think you kind of know the answer. So that's what's tough is like if you're on the Kelsey path, you better be like unbelievably good, and that's where Bowers is. That's where Bowers is. I just don't think anybody else right now is on that. Like Laporta took the path of like, yes, I'm a great receiver, but no, I'm going to become a better and better blocker, so that my value on this team continues to be very high, and that's why he is panning out. So, yeah, if Kraft is panning out, he's going the Kittle direction. I know that was a long answer, but
well, the entire problem with those receiving tight ends, and I'm not going to call them the Kelsey types because like for Kelsey types, it's Kelsey and it's Bowers and like just only a couple other names, at most. The problem is the best receiving tight ends are always going to be worse receivers than a wide receiver. And the best blocking tight ends are always going to be worse than a tackle. And you need a tight end to be both. Otherwise, if you got to sub a guy in and out, why would you put a tight end out there who can't block? Just put another wide receiver out there. Why would you put a tight end out there who can't receive? Just go Buffalo, get that Bison package, whatever. Get another offensive lineman out there because they're going to be better than a tight end. Yeah. You are getting the worst of both worlds. So the only way that a tight end actually makes sense is if it's a guy who can do both really well.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is why, although Tyler Warren is a fun player to watch and Harold Fannin is a fun player to watch, I liked Terrence Ferguson and Mason Taylor a little bit more as NFL tight ends. I'm not touching the Colston Loveland topic, but those are guys who are good at both. Yeah. And that's why I think they actually can be successful in the NFL. Unless Tyler Warren and Harold Fannin learn to block, they can't be good NFL players. They just can't because they are always going to be worse receivers than a wide receiver would be. So you need to be much more effective in the blocking game than a wide receiver so that you can stay out there and make the offense versatile. So probably did enough on tight ends, but with I did want to also
we got to circle back to
Musgrave comp?
Matthew. The Musgrave comp real quick, and then we should circle back to Matthew's Sheed question from earlier as well.
Thanks for remembering that. That was important. I did forget. Yeah. So the big caveat here is like if he hits, and I think you and I would both describe ourselves as pretty big time Musgrave doubters. I think at least I would. Yeah. I'm a Musgrave doubter. Would love to see him find success, but he wasn't a prospect that I liked, and so far I haven't seen anything from him to make me think like things are moving in the right direction. But if he did hit, I think, although maybe the first place that your mind wants to go is Mark Andrews, I kind of like Greg Olsen as a comp a little bit better for if he like really hits and is a really impactful offensive player. But the point being, he got this seam ripper who's much more of a receiver in a tight end's body, who you can count on to help out in the blocking game at times. Maybe not for a full game. So, and here's the problem. You're trying to find like a comp of if it does pan out. Yeah. There's not a lot out there. Not a lot of guys who have his kind of prototype pan out in the NFL. So, there's a lot of comps out there you can find for Luke Musgrave. And they ain't in the NFL anymore.
Well, I have one that is still in the NFL. Because I just think it might make sense if he continues to kind of work.
Does he play in the AFC North?
He might. I think the Musgrave comp is Mike Gesicki. Just because I think he is, again, if he just never gets there as a blocker, even though he's got this kind of the size for it, he just sort of feels like this sort of big receiver who, is kind of going to be a potential mismatch because of the size, threaten down the seam, work on some corner routes on some smash plays where you can get him, full speed ahead towards the corner of the end zone. Like, that's where I think he feels like, kind of this sort of bigger slot, like, go make plays with, kind of the body control and the extension ability and the high point ability and all of that, rather than like trying to work you into an inline position. Just like kind of, this is the guy you should be looking at more often of like, yeah, just he can make plays in the passing game. Musgrave has, I'd say, probably a little bit maybe more speed than Gesicki, but again, it's those seam stretchers. It's kind of playing big receiver rather than any sort of tight end, but also, having some sort of reliability as a go-to option. Like that to me feels like where Musgrave is trending towards if he succeeds. Because again, it's, as we've already outlined plenty, it's, if you can't block, it is tough out here to survive. Like even McBride does it a little bit, and he does it enough to where like, he can be kind of the secondary guy to oh no, I forget who their guy that they had there. Shoot, he might have played. Was Max Williams there for a while? It's not. He might not be the guy I'm thinking of, but like they always had another guy who was able to attach to the formation more than McBride. McBride can still be an ancillary piece in terms of the run blocking, but he's become a dominant pass catching tight end. So I just don't. I think the Musgrave comp is just squarely on like, this is kind of the path you have to take the Gesicki path to kind of stick around for a long time.
So let's circle back to Matthew Hanson's question. How much should the Packers spend on Rasheed Walker? And I think there's really two questions in here. And the first is, how much is Rasheed Walker worth? The second is, how much should he be worth to the Packers? Oh, hey, Drew's in the chat. What's up, Drew? Drew says, I lost track of time. Sadly, we are almost at the end of our live stream, actually. I have a very early morning tomorrow, so I can't stay on. But Rasheed Walker, the obvious disconnect here, because Rasheed Walker is starting left tackle in the NFL caliber.
Yeah.
So he has to be making at least what the 32nd highest paid left tackle in the NFL makes, which the 32nd highest paid is Josh Connerly, who was just drafted. There's a lot of teams who don't have established veteran left tackles. So I think, looking at what other left tackles are being paid, I kind of like a little bit, roughly like the Armstead Robinson range of about 12 mil a year. That I kind of think that is about the floor of what Rasheed's value would be in free agency if other teams start bidding on him. I just don't think that he's going to get have to settle for less than that. There's teams out there who I think will pay him at least that much. He's a kind of a set it and forget it left tackle, really great pass blocker, okay run blocker. There's a lot of teams in the league that would be upgrading to go to Rasheed Walker, which
no question.
I kind of, if the Packers did move on from Rasheed, which I'm not really in favor of doing that, but if they did, I would much more heavily favor sort of a tag and trade situation as opposed to letting him walk in free agency. He's so freaking valuable, and just to be in a situation where you're like, we're going to let a starting caliber left tackle walk just because we have a lot of tackles on the roster, at least get something for him then. If you're not willing to pay him and keep him around, because you feel like you have to keep trying things with Jordan Morgan and whatever, and other guys who are on the roster. So, now Over the Cap is valuing him at about $8 million a year. But that is largely based on where his season ended. His last couple games, I would say 4 of his last 5 games to end the year, he was struggling a bit. Now he was, seemed like he had a little bit of a nagging injury, but earlier in the year, in week 9, Over the Cap was valuing him at nearly $22 million average per year. So like, you know, his value was all over the place for this past season. So to me, I just think 12 mil a year, for 4 years is like the absolute minimum he could possibly have to settle for if he was walking this current offseason, which he's still under contract right now. So
yeah. So here's the thing. Dan Moore got a lot of money from the Titans, and he isn't good.
No.
He got, I think the AAV was like just north of 20. And he's not very good.
He's the eighth highest paid tackle in the NFL.
Yeah.
$20.5 million per year.
So, like, to me, I'm trying to look at teams now for 2026 cap space, but like immediately what comes to mind, the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Can just go, yeah, no, we'll give you 23 a year, 24.
And a number like that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
It's not even, again, there's no slight to Rashid at all in this of like saying like he is more maybe in the middle of the road, maybe a little bit more top half, you'd probably say, in terms of left tackles across the league, which I think is very fair to him. And he has well outplayed his 7th round billing. I know JJ, you said he thought he was more of a 3rd rounder. Right, but
he's at least the 15th best left tackle in the NFL.
I think that's probably a good. I'm trying to think of like who, because there's a few after, you get the big names out of the way. Like, you could start playing the game sheet or blank. Sheet or Colton Miller would be an interesting one. I think to me, like, who's better?
Yeah, I was gonna say Jonah Williams. Sheed or Jonah Williams?
Definitely Sheed.
Because Jonah,
like, if you're the Chiefs,
Jonah got 2 years for $30 million.
Wow. For what? What'd he do?
Yeah.
No, but this is the Dan Moore thing, guys. He's not. Rashid's getting at least 20. I'm sorry, like, there's no question. You're telling me a Dan Moore gets 20 a year, and again, he's not going to get all of it. But the AAV being at 20, and he's not even good. Like, Pittsburgh had 2 starters ahead of him for a reason. And, like, by the way, one of them isn't doing very well. Like, they were totally fine moving off from him. He got 20. If they let him walk, he's getting probably 22, 23 at the very least. That's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's no question.
5 guys who are currently at 20 mil, and then it's kind of a jump up to the 23-ish range. So you got Ronnie Stanley, Taylor Decker, Deion Dawkins, Garrett Bowles, and Dan Moore are all at 20 mil. I think that he could pretty easily say, hey, I am a lot better than pretty much this pile of guys.
Yeah.
Decker notwithstanding.
And again, the desperation could send it even higher because we
give
know.
Give me 22, give me 23.
Yeah, the desperation could send it even higher to point like, I know you guys need me. Like, you need left tackles. I am one. Mm-hmm. The bidding could be sent even higher. So, like, it is what it is. Like, everybody's looking for guys who can pass block their butt off like Walker can. New England would love to have this right now. They have so many problems.
Yeah,
and there's no question he is a enormous upgrade. Again, Pittsburgh drafted Broderick Jones. It has not gone well so far. Like, could they upgrade to him if they wanted to? If they could, if they they had the space to do so, and like, no question that they would. Who else?
By the way,
Miami.
Do you know where Walker went to high school?
He was it. Wait. DC area, Maryland.
Yeah, Maryland.
Yeah, because there was a guy at the Senior Bowl who I met, who went to school with him in that area. That's how I know. So I do think he's getting a ton of money in free agency. Period.
Oh yeah.
And again, if you're Green Bay and you're again, this is the cap situation of like Jenkins with the money and unfortunately Clark with his money and Ja with his money of like, we got to bring this number down. On top of it, the extensions that you might be wanting to give out, obviously Zach Tom, he's going to be one. Like they, and we also talked about this, right? Even pre-draft, before they made the Belton selection, of like, hey, if they went Simmons or like Banks or Connerly in the first, like, don't lose your mind, because that could be the future at left tackle, or and so we kind of were met with this in the second round of maybe Belton is that guy, or maybe they're want Jordan Morgan to be that guy. Whoever it is, like, they probably feel comfortable about how the future is going to look at that position. So I do imagine, again, if Green Bay's getting him, he knows what he's worth, and Zach Tom knows what he's worth, and that's a heck of a lot more on top of it. So you got a lot of guys: Doubs, Watson, Enagbare, Ryan. This whole class essentially entering free agency, other than Wyatt, who they picked up the 5th-year option on, right? And they've, again, this could be all smoke and coach speak, but like, it sounds like they want Quay Walker back. Not everybody's going to be able to make it back. So I just don't think it happens. I feel like they're going to let him walk, and they're going to feel comfortable with 2 potential options to replace him. Maybe 3. Maybe it ends up with Zach Tom at left tackle and Belton at right tackle. Like that could happen. So wouldn't rule that out either. As we've talked about many times, about, like, I think probably was the show with Chris right after the draft, of like, we could see this line going in a lot of different directions in terms of what the starting 5 looks like in 2026 based on guys Green Bay has brought in. So yeah, it was a good question from Matthew.
Drew
how much should they spend? I wouldn't want them to spend as much as he's going to get. And so that kind of renders it moot, unfortunately, of like, he's going to get more than what I think, the Packers probably should spend on him. So he's gone. So
Drew says, if a young guy like Belton shows he can play left tackle, could a mid-season trade be a possibility? And I would say the only reason why I would maybe lean yes is because if you're in a situation where you feel like you do have the depth to not have tackle become a big issue in a playoff push, then Rashid's value would kind of be at an all-time high, because you trade him, he's still in a rookie deal.
Yeah.
You don't have to get into a bidding war with anybody else, and you have the ability to tag him. So you would, or the team that's trading for him would be able to tag him, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
If they trade for him mid-year here, he's still on his rookie deal. So I would be not super interested, but if we could, I think it would have to be better than a 4th-round pick for me to be interested, because
oh yes.
And like, would I do it for a 3rd? I probably would do it for a 3rd, but I would feel really conflicted about it, because
I would feel good if you were bad.
Well,
and you were getting out that 3rd, but like, yeah,
if we're bad, okay, let's say that
if like the team acquiring him is right, of like, Green Bay feels really comfortable along the O-line based on their options, right? Belton or Morgan or not, and like the team coming to get him is bad, and might be picking in the high 60s, around 70. You could definitely talk me into that.
Well, I was thinking, like, if we, in the middle of the 2024 season, if we were in that situation, where he's on an expiring, the 2024 season that we just finished up, where like that the wheels were just kind of coming off all season. You didn't feel great about where the offense was at, or Jordan's health. You didn't feel great about what we could do in the postseason. If Rashid had been on an expiring contract at that point, and a team was interested in acquiring him for maybe a 3rd, I would be a lot more interested in pulling the trigger. But the thing that would give me heartburn, if we were having any kind of a decent season this year, would be, we just had back-to-back years, 2020 and 2021, where we had a Super Bowl level roster and a best in the NFL record, prime position to make a deep playoff push and really compete for a ring. And left tackle you could point to squarely as this is why we are probably not able to get over the hump. Very clearly in 2020. Like, David Bakhtiari doesn't tear his ACL. I'm 1,000,000% confident we win the Super Bowl that year. Not a shred of doubt in my mind. And
Put
then
that ring on, baby.
And then 2021, you saw the wheels coming off at the end with the roster, with Rodgers, and that screen door, that's that saloon door we had in front of him at left tackle.
Yeah.
Was like squarely the problem. The problem, by the way, that the Jets just directly imported and then lost a full year because of it. But
yeah.
So for that reason, we're sitting here 4 years later thinking about maybe possibly trading a set it and forget it starting caliber left tackle in the middle of a season. It's going to have to be at least a day 2 pick or better for me to even think about it. And even then, I'm going to feel really conflicted and be second guessing myself the whole way through.
Yeah, no, that's true. There were a couple more starred questions I think we want to get to.
Yeah, let's at least hit Chris's question before we hop up here.
Chris's one? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I wanted to just really quickly
I want to get to too, for sure. Because I think.
How about I take Chris and you take Joseph?
Okay.
Because if we both answer both, we're going to be here for 40 minutes.
That's true.
So Chris wants to know: can Golden be a true number 1 if he reaches his upper range? To answer that, I would just, throw the question back like, hey, let's make sure that we're defining what a true number 1 is, and I would say. You're the number 1 if you are leading the team in targets, especially on 3rd and 4th down, and if opposing defenses plan first how to take you away from among all the other receiving options. And to that, I would say I think Golden has the complete skill set that he could be that. I don't know that I would rate him as the most likely of all the Packers wide receivers to become that, but no question that he is one of the guys who can do it. I don't think that every wide receiver we have can be that. Golden certainly is one of the few that can. Would be my answer. So,
yeah, I like that. Golden has the potential to be a 3-phase, 3-level threat. He has that potential. It is there. So, which there's some others who might not have the 3-level or the 3-phase potential that he has. It's hard to see McMillan be a total 3-level for Carolina, but he will certainly be a 3-phase for them. But again, yeah, they may still take shots down to him because of the frame, because of the size, all that stuff. But Golden certainly has that. And again, we talked a lot about last year of especially last year in 2024 of guys who had that potential because that class was loaded. Yeah, Drew, I did see this. The peg dropping stuff. The reaction time was outstanding. This is peak off season though. What I will say, we are peak off season. We're going, man. You see how bad he was in the reaction drill?
Peg dropping.
Peg dropping. You see how
drill.
bad he was. Yeah. He must be bad. And it's like, hold on, and then he did great, so he's gonna be great. It's awesome that he did well, but let's let the horse go before the cart goes, okay? Just we don't have to send the cart out there first. We don't. I got you. That's fine. That's what the off season's for, fun. If the off season's for a fun time, don't get caught in the like, oh, because of this, we're getting this or anything. Like, just say like, I enjoy this. This was cool. And I think you did say that, Drew. So that's on me. But I've already seen some stuff. I've already seen some stuff with some other guys about all this. So, I want to get to Joseph's before we get out of here. He says, what are some deep, young teams that have blossomed into dominant squads in recent years? He says, which other teams besides the Eagles and Rams are comparable to the Pack in that way? The Rams have been such a strange one because – go ahead. If you got
the first thought that I had as I was like kind of running in my head through a bunch of teams, and like I did think about the Rams, and I did think about the Eagles for a minute each. And one of the things that I thought about like all the 7 or 8 teams that I considered was, okay, these are squads that were together for a long time, but they kind of didn't come together and like really become a dominant force until they were all old. They just had been together for a bajillion years.
Yeah, I think the tough one with the Rams is they added Stafford, right? And so like he wasn't the young portion of this when they added him. But they've done a really nice job reloading with young talent to supplant the vets that they have in the room. So
Goff era Rams is what came to mind for me.
Yeah. I mean, the Bills were a young blossoming team. Allen hit the stride, and then they had a lot of young guys, and then they went in for some vets, and that's kind of where you go, right? You have this young core that's doing well, and then you add the vets in. I mean, Houston has a really nice young core that they're putting together. They did get rid of Tunsil, but again, he was on the veteran side. If they had been able, I don't remember they got Ursary. That again, they could blossom certainly, and they maybe were a little ahead of schedule, kind of like Green Bay was, right? In that 23 season. But that's one that comes to mind. Who else comes to mind as a young team that's blossoming? I mean, there's one that might blossom in the division that I think all of us here on stream and in the comments are hoping does not. They've certainly added a lot of young guys. They've added some vets as well. I'm trying to think of who else is like super young that's adding everything at this. Houston just was like, I think my favorite example. Obviously, Philly's a really good one.
Well, and Houston's a fun example.
Tampa Bay's always adding young talent. Like they draft so well. Their UDFA class is so good. Like they have the QB who's going to be around for a while. Like Tampa Bay might be a really nice example of it. You have your McMillan and Ibuka that flooded in at receiver these last 2 years. You get Bucky Irving in there, right? Luke Gadecki and Graham Barton and all these guys that are younger on the offensive line. They still have Wirfs in place though. They added a bunch. They went and got Winfield a few years ago. Like that feels like one that's really good as well. It's weird because there's a lot of teams that are kind of on that in between.
But it seems like all the teams that we're thinking of, you had this really young core that was together for a really long time, and then you start to think of them as an old team because they go load up on a bunch of
free agents.
Elderly ring chasing free agents.
Yeah, Baltimore's probably still a decent example.
Baltimore's a great.
Like Linderbaum, and they went and got Rosengarten and Falele along the offensive line the last several years. They get Lamar. Yes, they brought in Henry, but Zay Flowers and Bateman were draft picks. Andrews was a draft pick.
This might be the comp.
Matabwike was the draft pick, right, who they extended. Travis Jones has become a good nose tackle. They drafted Marlon Humphrey all those years ago. They got Kyle Hamilton. Now they got Starks, and they got Wiggins. Like, they've brought in a lot of young talent. Now where they're supplanting it, right? They went and got Roquan Smith in the middle of all that. Then they went and got Derrick Henry. That feels like maybe one that's on track as well.
And it kind of feels like the Packers are
So-
experiencing similar levels of success to what the Ravens are,
Yeah,
which is
I
like
would say so.
this is a really scary team that you just don't have any confidence in to go all the way. Like nobody's putting a lot of money on the Ravens to win a Super Bowl. You are heavy favorites that they're going to win their division every year. They're probably gonna be most years the Ravens are going to be a second round bounce.
Yeah.
Who
would place money on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl in May? What a moron.
Did you do that?
I would. I can neither confirm nor deny any details of any operation without the secretary's approval. So had to throw a reference in. I'm glad we got a reference like that in before Friday. It's perfect. Perfect.
See,
we were talking about it after the show last week.
I was actually I was rewatching that scene earlier today.
Oh, really?
For the three people who don't know what we're talking about, this is a scene from Mission Impossible Rogue Nation where Jeremy Renner's character Brant is in a hearing, congressional hearing, and the director of the CIA is asking him questions, and he can't give a single answer to any of the questions because everything's all classified.
Yeah.
Freaking amazing movie.
Super good.
Jake and I were talking after we finished our live stream last week.
Yeah, essentially was a 3.5 hour pod followed by a 30 to 40 minute discussion. Also,
it was almost an hour. I think that we sat there talking about movies.
It was a while,
and I finally said, like, dude,
what
I don't think either one of us, certainly me, have the additional free time to add a second joint podcast.
Be kind of sick though.
But a movie podcast, like,
good time,
kind of needs to happen.
Could talk about all the Godzilla movies.
Oh heck yeah! But all of them, or all of like the?
Would you say the new franchise is what you're saying? Like, is that what you're saying?
I mean, like, this is the question. Like, how many of the old ones do we go back and watch?
Well, that is a good question.
I'll tell you real quick. Here's all the Godzilla movies that I have. I'm pulling up my list. This is all the Godzilla movies in my collection. Come on. I bought my new computer. It's in the mail, coming to me now. I have not seen anything of the new season of Andor, Brian. I haven't
seen it either. It came.
I've been binging Mission Impossible
during draft week. It came out during draft week. What do you expect me to do?
We also, my wife had never seen Dexter, and so we were getting her caught up on that, and we burned through 8 seasons in. I don't even want to think how many weeks it took us. But I loved Andor season 1. That was absolutely fantastic. I think outside of the first 6 films plus Rogue One plus I didn't hate The Force Awakens. And
no, I think Force Awakens.
I thought Solo was decent.
Force Awakens was just kind of like, hey, can we have a New Hope with maybe a bigger scale, a little more pace, and like modern CGI? I was like, okay, yeah, sure, that works for me.
I actually did not hate The Last Jedi as much as like everybody else did, but I don't think I'm ever gonna see Revenge of Skywalker ever again.
Rise of Skywalker.
That was Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. I thought that was like the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I hated it. But I have 9 Godzilla movies in my collection. Ooh. I have the 1954 Godzilla. I have 95's Godzilla Destroyer, and then I have the 2014 series, which is Godzilla, Kong Skull Island. I guess that's not really Godzilla, but it's still part of it. Godzilla minus one though. That's where it's at. That's the best one. I saw that when they re-released Godzilla minus one in black and white. I went back to the theater and saw it in IMAX, which is a big deal because I have to drive an hour and a half to get to the nearest IMAX. So it was worth it.
There you go.
We have a couple conflicting opinions here. Brian Murphy says The Last Jedi was good. And then I think when Drew says that was so bad, I think he's talking about Rise of Skywalker. And Murphy also says Rise of Skywalker was weird. It was just a bad movie. I don't know. Just
if they ever make another trilogy, if they make another trilogy, please have a plan for all three. At least an outline. Like, it doesn't have to be a long outline. Just like any like outline you could put on a few slides of like, hey, these are the major points we're gonna hit in a trilogy, okay?
Which is weird.
It's all I'm asking. Which is such
they clearly filmed them all at the same time. Like, you know, they did this big bait and switch of like, oh, hey, you know, so Force Awakens just came out and Carrie Fisher died. And we're all like, oh, man, so that means that, like, are we actually going to get her in the next one? And they're like, well, we can either confirm or nor deny. And then you watch Last Jedi and you get to the end of it and you're
Kennedy's
like,
approval.
You're like, so I thought they were going to kill her off, but they... Oh, and then we find out they just filmed them all at the same time. And then it just took a decade to edit it into the slop that they did. I don't know.
Just have a plan. That's all I'm asking going forward.
Oh, Drew says Star Trek has been ruined as badly as Star Wars, so you're not alone. Now, I have not kept up with any of the new shows. I know there's like a ton of new Star Trek shows that are always going on. I've not watched any of those. I think the last actual Star Trek thing I watched was what was it? Beyond? Was that the third one in the Chris Pine trilogy? I liked the first two, and then Beyond was like just kind of okay. I didn't watch any of the shows, but the Orville though. The Orville is where it's at. For if you're jonesing for Star Trek,
there it is.
Don't watch Star Trek. Watch the Orville.
There you go.
Carrie had already filmed Last Jedi. She had filmed all three of them. I'm just saying.
I just don't know.
She had to have filmed the third one before she died.
I think there were some things that I thought they said they had, but
I mean, they had a ton of. She was not a bit role in that. She was totally just a full character.
No, really quick because I know
The Expanse is good. I don't know what The Expanse.
I've seen that. I've seen some of that actually.
Is it good? Oh, 6 seasons, perfect. I love a show. I love catching up on a show where I don't have to wait for new episodes. Yeah, that's my favorite way. I like being late.
I don't know. The old time like wait a week was built some nice anticipation, but there are some.
I mean,
shows,
I have current shows that I watch like that, and I hate it.
There are some shows that just don't live up to that like thing of like, oh yeah, you can wait a week for this because you know it's like, oh, this is good. This is gonna be worth the wait. Now it's just kind of like for the most part, just hand me the show. Like Game of Thrones was a fun wait every week. But like I don't think we need that for everything. I know we're in the middle of
good, by the way. I'm gonna have to check
movie
this out.
And TV show talk.
Oh yeah, we were supposed to be in the middle
circle
of signing off because I gotta go.
Because we're about to sign off and go. I just wanted to bring this up from Joseph because it gets us back to the kind of the core of what we wanted to talk about tonight was the offense. Joseph says also Green Bay might be uniquely positioned to swing this run heavy, pass heavy pendulum back to empty sets if a few of these young receivers put it together in the next 2 years, get ahead of the trends. Yes, Green Bay I think is going to have they have a unit on offense where there are ways to be multiple and to adapt. That kind of, as you say, it might be a little more unique. Now, I think that Philly probably has some of the best ability to adjust because I think they have 2 number ones on their team at receiver, which certainly helps. So, like, yeah, they're kind of in a unique position as well with kind of insane talent everywhere, but Green Bay certainly has a lot of depth in spots that I do think can kind of take over should the situation arise if the receivers kind of get back to where we think they can be. So I do like that. That's a great comment to kind of get us signing off here.
And we may have to pick up there again next week because that is
we might.
That's an interesting and
I'll keep it starred.
Can you pin Drew's final comment here? Because I'd like to maybe talk about that early next week too. Yeah,
This guy.
Can you start it for next week?
Yep, I will.
Because
That's an interesting one, Drew. We like that.
And we like that you chose to spend another hour with us, goofing off, talking Packers, talking movies. Do you like the movie talk? Is it not for you? Let us know, because I think
Are we
Jake
getting
and I
a
would be
Mission
down
Impossible 8 review next week? Probably. On the
How many
show.
times are you seeing Mission Impossible 8 this week?
It got to be at least 2. I think got to be at least 2, and maybe another one the following weekend. To kind of like let the first couple simmer, and then we go see a third. But yeah,
And this is where you see
that's the plan.
This is where you see that Jake and I have very similar interests and then very different lives, because I have toddlers and I can't go see a movie multiple times in the theater.
That's fair.
I could barely get away to go see it once, but
That's fair.
thank you so much for joining us. We love you guys.
Yes.
Peace out. In the words of the late great, venerable Mr. Ed Powell, go Pack.